Welcome to another episode of The Wave, the wonderful Alberni Valley experience. I'm your host, Don Tecson, and we're bringing today a very, very special guest and a very, very special friend of mine. And her name is a wonderful story in itself. And I'd like to introduce you without much ado. Here is my guest for today on The Wave, the lovely Hinatinyis. Hi, darling. How are you?
Hey Don, good to see you. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad you took the time. I was meaning to interview you like a long time ago, and I said, "Hey, why don't I call Hinatinyis?" And I'm so glad you said yes. Okay, so we're going to be talking about your wonderful Alberni Valley experience. And like most people or most young people that I know, you were born and raised here in Port Alberni, correct?
Correct.
And like most young people, you went off and you wanted to find greener pastures. Tell me about that, your adventure. So you're kind of like the prodigal. I meet a lot of prodigals to Port Alberni, and you're one of them. So tell me about your, so you're about 18, 19, and where'd you go?
After I graduated, I ran off to Victoria and I just wanted to be there. I didn't have any plans. I was winging it, shooting from the hip, and
Of course.
just found a job. Any job, every job. I had 3 jobs most of the time at any given time, and settled into working as a karaoke host, actually.
Of course.
Like calls to like.
We love karaoke. That's where we met, actually. Did we meet at karaoke or the Portal Players?
It was karaoke.
Yeah, we met at karaoke, and we just had to do a duet, and we did a duet. And I
Yeah,
said,
no,
"Oh,
I
I
love
gotta be
Victoria.
friends with this girl." And so you were doing karaoke, and you decided to come back. And by that time, when I met you at karaoke, you were known to me as Britney. Then a
Yes, I
few
was.
years, it wasn't long after that, finally I got to know you as Hinatinyis. Now there's a story you want to hear.
Yeah, well, I wanted to move home and be part of something bigger. In Victoria, it was all single served stuff, single served jobs, friends, everything. It was so impersonal, and I wanted to come back home and be part of a community. And when I came home, I started working for my nation, which has been wonderful for me. I work for the Huu First Nations, and that's where my father came from. And I had this wonderful opportunity to go to school to learn our language, and to become a language teacher. And during that journey, one of the homework tasks was to use the language every day in just small ways. Even if you only know one word, use that word every day. And I thought to myself, I have something that I can use every day to remind me to use the language. My grandmother gave me the name Hinatinyis when I became a woman, and it means she's always welcoming. So
Oh,
I thought, yeah. So I wanted to wear it every day to remind myself, of the work that I'm doing and who I am and what I'm part of.
that's that's so wonderful. So your name Hinatinyis is your native name or your native, or how do you call it? Your original name or your real name?
Well, I just like to call it my name because I don't want to put one in front of the other. I mean, I
Okay.
do like wearing Hinatinyas, but I also do love my name, Brittany, as well. My mother and my father gave me that name, and I love them both. But I do prefer to be addressed as Hinatinyas.
And it's a lovely name, and I love calling you. Although I had a hard time, because I was like Brittany, Brittany, Brittany. It's so easier to say, but there's more. I don't know. I feel more. Well, like you said, I feel more welcome and so warm. There's sort of like this heartfelt warmth when you say the name Hinatinyis. So that's what Hinatinyis means. It means she is always welcoming, and indeed, you have been part of my wonderful Alberni Valley experience when I met you. So tell me about this work that you do. So your work involves teaching the language.
Yes. I actually just finished my schooling for it a couple of weeks ago. I have been spending the last 3 years studying to become an instructor. So I don't have my Bachelor of Education, so I'm not a teacher in that kind of a sense. But what we were learning was how to be better learners, first of all, and second of all, how to share that in a very healthy way. because our language is not a written language. We can't go and pull up books from 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago. Our language was an oral language, and
Mm-hmm.
we are left with so few speakers that the people that we're trying to get the information from, they're not instructors. They were fishermen, they were bakers, they were, you know, they had different roles around the community, but teaching wasn't their natural piece. So it falls on the student to be the person who's pulling the information out of these fluent speakers, and to do it in a respectful, kind, and gentle way so that we're all in a good space. Because a lot of this work is actually very traumatic, unfortunately, with the history of First Nations and
Yes.
residential schools. The loss of language is a very traumatic thing. So being prepared to be in that space is very heavy work.
Well, it is a wonderful thing that you were doing, like the restoration and the reviving of the language. It was like and I know if I don't know if I know my story right, but at one point in the history of this country, speaking your native language was a crime, right? But
Absolutely.
now I'm
Yeah.
just so happy that that's not the case anymore, and you're there involved with the restoration and the revival of your precious language, which is like carries a lot of meaning and a lot of tradition and a lot of education and information in itself. So where do you do this, and how do you do this?
Well, what I've been doing for the last few years was doing an intensive studying with UVic here in town. They offered a course that was a satellite course, and we had people from all over the island traveling here to this Port Alberni as the hub for this language course. And now that we've graduated, we are all settling into our communities and finding different ways to work with each other. I know that as I was getting out of school and going back into work, was the same time that this pandemic hit. And we had just found out that we were receiving a very generous grant to do some of this work. And I was very excited. The whole idea was to be traveling around to connect with all these communities, see what kind of resources they have, what kind of work has already been done, gather it all up, and then try to share it with everyone. Because so much of the wheel spinning that's been happening around language revitalization is that the funding is pocket-sized, small
Oh.
one-time grants. And so we're not getting any traction to movement. And I'd really like to connect all of these communities. And we have a very unique opportunity that all of these students stayed in the cohort for so long together. We have such great connections already that it's going to be really natural to do the next steps. But we can't do that anymore. Traveling isn't an option, and going into these smaller communities on the West Coast is just not safe for them. So we're looking at trying to find ways to make it accessible without risking anyone's health and safety. So it's going to be a lot of these, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Zoom meetings. And for those who live in the more northern communities that don't have good service, it's going to be a lot of phone calls, because even just a video call takes up too much data, and they don't get a good enough signal out there.
Oh, I see. So here locally, though, are there enough students or people to get involved here, right here in Port Alberni? Is there a
Well, I mean,
clientele, so to speak?
we could always use more. I mean, I'd love to inspire more people to come and join us on this work, but there is a good number here in town. I mean, Port Alberni is a big hub for West Coast communities anyway, and so a lot of people have moved here from their smaller outlying communities. We have a great team of people who work here in Port Alberni doing some of the work. I mean, there's those who are teaching up at North Island College. There's actually a new Chunnoth language course that's offered at North Island, which is
Oh,
wonderful.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, and we have some study groups that kind of live on the out edges that aren't really public yet. But we're gaining momentum, and it's exciting to see. And I'm very happy to be part of it.
Okay. Well, I happen to know that part of your wonderful Alberni Valley experience is you got married last year, or was it this year? No, last year.
Last year.
Okay, tell me about that. Just a little bit about that.
Well, when I was in Victoria, I met my partner, and and we met at karaoke,
Of
obviously.
course.
And when I told him that I wanted to move home and be part of something bigger, I wasn't sure if he'd actually come with me, but he did, and he took to Port Alberni like I don't even know, like a fish in water. He just loves it here, and
He came out
I,
in plays at the Capitol Theater. You came out in
absolutely,
plays at the Portal Player.
it was hard at first because we got so used to living in the city, but once you settled into not having that go 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 mentality, it was really relaxing. And actually, I never thought we'd end up getting married. By the way, we'd been together for so long, and
Yeah, yeah, that's part of my question. So you were to how long were you together before you finally decided to get married? So you moved to Port Alberni when?
ah, goodness, I moved to Port Alberni 5 years ago.
Okay, so fine. That's about 2015, 2014. So you
Yeah,
moved
about that.
back with Mitch, your partner,
Yeah.
back to Port Alberni, and gave it a go. And Mitch has, yeah, I've seen Mitch in different plays. Like one of the first plays I was in, Mitch was in it.
Oh,
Remember
that
the
was the.
actor's nightmare? The
That's
actor's
right.
nightmare, and was that his first play as well?
That was his first play. Yeah.
Then he came out in other plays after that.
Yeah, we've been
And you
together for
also
7 years now.
came out. Well, you didn't really. You were cast as the voice of the plant in what was that weed
Little
thing,
shop.
Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah.
And you also came out in something called Sisters or something.
Yeah. I no, I wasn't in Sisters. I was in Nun Sensations.
Non-sensations. That's right. You're in non-sensations. So anyway,
Yeah.
you came back and you were living with Mitch for quite a while. What made you decide to, make a go of marriage and the whole 9 yards of the ceremony? And
You'd
I
have to
wasn't
ask him.
invited, but that's okay.
No, I have no idea. Like we'd been together for so long and never thought it would happen. And then I remember he proposed to me, and I remember just being shocked because we weren't dressed up at the Eiffel Tower or anything like that. I was at home in my dirty pajamas, and he asked me to marry him, and I remember like looking at myself and then looking at him like, really? This? Like, the pajamas, everyone has a pair of them. The
Of
ones that you don't
course.
show to the public. But yeah, no, I remember thinking to myself, well, if he loves me like this, he's going to love me forever.
There you go.
We got married in Banfield out on the
Hmm.
coast where my family's from. And it was really beautiful. The sun set at just the right moment, just like as if we ordered it. And we did some
Wow, that's
traditional dancing, and he was really good, by the way.
oh
He's not First
wow.
Nations, but he did First Nations dancing, and I was really impressed with him.
That is wonderful. That is a day that you'll definitely add to your wonderful Alberni Valley experience. I saw some of your pictures, like you were like my resting bitch bride face or whatever. Like you're sitting with your gown crumpled up and your cigarette, and like, oh, I'm glad this is over.
You know what, that photo, I used that one in my poster for when I did a show at Shars Landing. And I plastered it all over the town, and I was just so tickled with myself. There with my cigarette and my gown everywhere. What had happened was we were coming up from doing our photos, and I didn't think about what kind of shoes I had to wear, so I'm wearing like these sandals, trying to like jump in and out of a boat. Have you ever beached a boat?
Yeah, I have, but yeah, you
So you
don't
know what
you do it on
happened.
a gown. You're in a wedding gown doing a big. Oh my God,
And I
that's
didn't
another one
time
to
it up
add to your
right.
wonderful Valley experience.
I had water all up like the front of me, but good thing there's like 18 layers in a wedding dress, so it wasn't see-through. Oh,
You got up a boat in your wedding dress. So that's
getting
classic.
off the boat wasn't the problem. It was getting back on it that was.
Okay, so that was definitely a day to remember on your wonderful Alberta Valley experience. This was what, in the summer last year?
Yeah, it was in August.
Okay. All right. So I'm not gonna ask you why I wasn't invited. I know it was limited because it was out in Banfield.
I
And I
love
guess
you so much. I'm so sorry.
no, that's okay. I know there was a limited party because it was out in Bamfield and you're only limited to so many people because not too many people can go out there anyway. But anyway, I was cheering you on, Dolly. Now, moving on to the next question is what inspired you to get into this type of vocation, like
Um,
revitalizing language?
it was just something that I was interested in. I was very curious on um, what my grandmother was saying to me. I mean, because she had, growing up, said different phrases to me, and I had no idea um, what most of it meant, right? I mean, you get the gist of it by the way that they talk to you and the situation that you're in, but you have no real way of knowing. And honestly, it wasn't until they passed away, um, and I knew that I couldn't have it. Um,
Oh,
yeah, and they passed away while I was gone, while I was in Victoria discovering what was important. And I remember mourning the idea that I would never learn it from my grandparents. But it's been really amazing learning about them because I'm working with people who knew them when they were kids. You know
oh,
what I
that's
mean? So,
wonderful. Hmm.
yeah, it's been really wonderful. Even though I didn't get to share this opportunity with them, I can still look into what their world was like before I came around.
And I'm sure they're watching over you with a big smile on their face. Oh, you're making me cry. It's a good thing I'm not wearing makeup. That's why I don't do makeup. I dress up, but I don't do makeup. Oh my goodness, it's such a wonderful story to hear and to listen to. So I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. Your mom was the one who gave you the name Brittany, but it was your grandmother who gave you the name Hinatinyis.
Yeah.
So
So
they did get to meet you, right? I mean, when you were
yes,
born and
yeah, my grandmother, I'm both of my grandparents' side have left us and are no longer with us. But um, my mother my mother's side of the family was Ojibwe. Sorry, my cat's being really needy. Come here. If you're gonna be needy, you can be needy on camera.
oh, that's
Um,
fine. What's her name?
oh, this is Star.
Is it he or a she?
She.
Okay, so I just said her name. Okay.
The no, so my grandmother on my mother's side is Ojibwe, and that's actually where part of my ancestry is from. And my grandmother on my father's side is West Coast, and she's from the Toquat Nation, and married my grandfather, who was Huayet. So West Coast on my father's side, it was my grandmother on my father's side that gave me the name. And so the
Okay,
name is not where I hail from, but where my father's mother hailed from.
I see.
Yeah.
So she gave you. Do you have any siblings that like have the same experience, or you're just the only child of what?
Oh goodness, no, I'm the oldest of five.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
the
and
eldest.
but I've got a blended family, so only some of them have names and some of them don't.
I see. But you're
Yeah,
the firstborn. The firstborn always has a special place in the family tree or the family history. I'm speaking because I'm a firstborn too, so I'm the
absolutely.
firstborn rainbow child of four. I'm the only rainbow child there. Okay, so what would you like to share with our audience in closing about this mission, this vocation of yours?
I guess what is like the most important thing for me to share is that you know it's it's very, very heavy work. I don't think people realize what they're getting into. And I don't know if I actually would have made the same decisions that I did if I had known about this beforehand. When I wanted to learn about my language and you know, I wasn't prepared to be into this space. Um, uh, you work with people that are on their way out. You work with people who know that they're not going to be here much longer, and it's very hard work. It's very hard work. It's not just a light study. It's not for fun. There's just so much responsibility that goes into the work. So if you know someone who does this kind of work, hug them, love them.
I will.
And well, really though, because it's most people just go, oh, I'm so proud of you, oh, you're doing so great, but they don't realize how low you can get while doing this kind of work. So for those who were looking to come and join us and do this work, make sure you have a good support network with you. Make sure you have people around you who can catch you if you fall.
Oh, that is so touching. I'm gonna cry again. My tears are just, they're on autopilot or something. I easily cry, but I don't mind, because what you're doing is not just continuing a legacy. What you're doing is preserving a heritage, a very important and vital heritage. And I'm proud of you. I don't want to cry. Anyway, I gotta end the show without crying. I hate it. Anyway, darling, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful Alberni Valley experience, your legacy, your heritage, your history, your joys and your sadnesses. But I'm just so glad I am your friend, and I'm so glad you came back to Port Alberni and not stay in
Me
Victoria.
too.
And because you came back, you will continue with your wonderful Alberni Valley experience. God bless you, Hinatinyis, darling. That's all we have. That's all the time we have for today. I'll talk to you after I push the stop record button. But for the meantime, this has been Don Tecson on the wave. We'll catch you next time.